You are listening to the Becoming the Wealthy You podcast with Jermaine Foley. If you're a woman who makes good money in your career or business, but you're not building wealth like you want to, then you're in the right place. In this podcast, you'll learn how to stop overspending, break free from the cycle of debt, save lots of cash, and become the wealthy woman you were born to be. Let's dive in. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Becoming the Wealthy You podcast. I am so excited to share this name change with you. I decided about a year ago that it was time to change the name, and I made the decision on the name in September, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to launch it for the very first episode in 2025. And so here we are. I'm going to say it again. Welcome to the Becoming the Wealthy You podcast. I am so excited that you're here, and let me go ahead and share why I'm changing the name. So, since the podcast was a thing, I've been hearing from people in my life, people that found me on the podcast and now are my clients. They've been saying things like, hey, Jermaine, I love the podcast, but I don't know if it's really for me. I'm not high achieving. They don't consider themselves to be high achieving. They don't consider themselves to be wealthy. And so they're listening, but they're like, is this really for me? I've even had women become my clients and they come to me like, I think I qualify to work with you. And it just hurts my heart because this feedback has just been telling, right? They say that where there's smoke, there's fire, right? So the previous name, the Wealthy Woman's Podcast, I believe unintentionally gave the impression that the podcast was for women who were already financially wealthy. And I believe that it has hindered a lot of you from listening or continuing to listen or taking that next step and maybe even working with me to actually become the wealthier version of yourself, right? And I don't want that. The intent for this podcast has always been aspirational. It's for women who want to build wealth, but aren't, even though they do well financially. So they make good money in their careers or in their businesses. They even describe it as, I make decent money. It's for women who have the means to be further along than where they are financially. And for some reason, money is the one area of their life that feels like a challenge. It's the one area that they just can't figure out. And that is who this podcast is for. It is for women who want to become a wealthier version of themselves. It is not for women who have already arrived. And we're going to talk about that fallacy a little later on in the show. There's never an arrival point anyway. So that is who this podcast is for, and that is why I'm changing the name. The new name, Becoming the Wealthy You podcast, reflects the journey of growth and transformation, focusing on who you need to become in order to build wealth sustainably while still enjoying your life. Now, we're definitely still going to focus on doing both. You know my motto, you can do both. You can build wealth and enjoy life at the same time, because this is what most women fear. They fear that if they commit to becoming a wealthier version of themselves, they would have to give up living life. And that's simply a lie. It's a lie that's keeping so many women stuck in frustrating financial patterns like overspending, constant credit card debt, little savings, and all of that just makes them miss out on putting their money to work for them. So, speaking of becoming a wealthier version of yourself, let's talk about what that means. Becoming a wealthier version of yourself is a journey of growth. It's about reaching for the next highest version of yourself, financially, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So, wealth is not just about money. It's about having a fulfilling, well-rounded life. Now, for the purposes of this podcast, we are mainly going to talk about wealth, becoming the wealthier version of you when it comes to your finances, okay? So here's an example of becoming a wealthier version of yourself. So if you're someone who struggles with overspending, the wealthier version of you learns to be in control of her spending without feeling deprived. Or if right now you can't imagine having $10,000 or $20,000 in the bank without wanting to spend it, right? You can't imagine having that in a high yield savings account without wanting to just spend it on a bunch of stuff. The wealthier version of you can't imagine not having $10,000. It's her baseline. It's her standard. Now, we're going to talk more about setting new standards for ourselves in a minute, but before I do, I want to address something else that's really important. Here it is. There is no arriving at wealthy. It's about consistently leveling up. Each stage of your life and finances will require you to raise your standards, grow, and evolve, and become the next level version of yourself. This is how I believe God created us to be. I believe that we want and desire so that we grow. If we were 100% satisfied with everything right now, and if there were no areas for improvement in our lives, that's when life becomes boring, mundane, and stagnant. Look at nature, trees. They are always producing new fruit. They do it in seasons, but they're always growing. And when they stop, they die and they get cut down. So if money feels like a struggle for you and you desire to be experiencing something different, then maybe, just maybe, this can be your area of growth. Growth in the way that you think about yourself, about your capabilities, growth in the way that you think about money, and growth in your actions, your habits, and your behaviors. When you grow in these areas, I promise you, your bank account and your net worth must follow suit. So to prove it to you, I'm going to share my example of becoming a wealthier version of myself. So I'm going to start where I began, and I'm going to talk about the future versions of myself, the wealthier versions of myself that I haven't even become yet. Okay, so I started off thinking that I was bad with money, that it was my lot in life to struggle financially, that there was no version of me that would ever be good with money. Literally, I believe that about myself. Now, I did have a pretty good standard around making money. Many of you know that I grew up in a blue-collar town and my parents did an amazing job taking care of us, but there just wasn't a lot of money. And so I didn't have the latest and greatest jeans and gym shoes and purses and all that stuff, right? So I made a subconscious pact with myself that I was going to grow up, go to college, get a really good job, make some good money so that I could buy whatever I wanted and never, ever have to tell myself no. And I know some of you can relate to that. So that was my standard. My standard was I'm going to make good money. And many of you have that standard too. You're like, I'm going to make good money, right? But we've never set a standard for how we were going to handle that money. And our reasons for wanting to even have the money is so that we can buy stuff. So we have to change our standards around why we even want the money. Okay, so let me go back to my evolution. So I started off being bad with money. That was my thought process. That was the story I had about myself. And with that, I spent everything I made. I had lots of debt, lots of stress, no savings, and very little investments, but I still earned well. Okay. So that was my baseline. That's where I started. And little did I know that was just the standard that I had for myself. So then I decided that I wanted to become a wealthier version of myself. I didn't use that terminology back then, but that's pretty much what happened. And so instead of thinking that I was bad with money and accepting that as a fact about myself, I started to question that. And then I came to the conclusion that I could figure out money. Like I could figure out how to get my money under control. I could figure out how to build wealth and not have to give up everything I loved. So that was the next level of me. That was the wealthier version of me. So I went from a person who believed I was bad with money to becoming a person that believed I could figure it out. Okay. And then the next level was I went from being a person who spent everything I made to leveling up to becoming a person that took control of my spending. So that was the next level, the next wealthier version of me. And then I went from being the person who had tons of debt to being a person who paid off her debt. Then I went from being a person who couldn't save any money to learning how to save and invest. Now, from there, I had to become the person who learned how to actually have money because I found myself spending everything I saved. So I would save and then I would spend it again. I'm like, oh, so the next level is you've learned how to save, right? You've created a pattern of saving, but you also created a pattern of spending your savings. So now you need to become the next wealthier version of yourself, a woman who can actually have money. Keep money in your life, keep money in your present. So understanding that it was safe to actually have money instead of just making money and spending money. Like it was safe to have money in my purse. It was safe to have money in my bank account that grew, that was beyond just a few hundred or a few $1,000s. So after that, once I learned how to have money, once I increased my capacity to have money and to actually enjoy having money more than I enjoyed spending it, right? I still enjoy spending money, don't get me wrong, but I also enjoy having money. I get joy from that. And it has become my new standard. Like I have to have a certain amount of money. Then from there, my net worth started to increase. So I became a woman who had several $100,000 worth of net worth. Remember, I started probably like with a net worth of a negative $300,000. When you really think about it, that's where we started. And now I'm at a $500,000 net worth. That's where I am now. So that was my evolution. It didn't just happen in one leap. It was up level after up level after up level. And it all started with thinking differently about myself. From going from thinking that I was just bad with money to not even going to a fantasy thought like I'm good with money. No, it was just I could figure it out. I could figure this out. And with that, here I am. And now I've got even more goals. So the next milestone would be, it would be kind of cool to have a $750,000 net worth. And then after that, $1 million. And then after that, $2 million. So it's like you see the desire, the growth, and I'm not in a rush to get there because I know that my life is still going to be life, right? I'm still going to have 50% negative experiences and 50% positive experiences, no matter where I am financially. That's just life, right? But it would be kind of cool to get there. It would be fun. And that's what I want you to embrace. The journey can be fun, going from level to level to level, raising your standard up and up and up and up, not in a striving way that makes you a better person, because none of this makes you a better person. You are already amazing. You are already 100% worthy. You are already good enough. And the way you handle money and how much money you have has nothing to do with that. But it is just fun to become a wealthier version of yourself and to constantly do that. An example that we all can relate to is Oprah Winfrey. Like, look where she started and look where she is now. And she isn't stopping. She didn't stop at $1 billion. She's continuously up-leveling herself. She's continuously growing. She continues to desire and to grow and evolve. And if you listen to any of her talks on YouTube or anything like that, you'll hear her talk about it. Right? It's not about arriving. It is about becoming. So it's not about being wealthy already. It is about becoming a wealthier version of yourself and having fun with it, because who you become on the journey is so cool. So I look back at the version of me that thought I was bad with money and I see the growth and I'm just like, oh my gosh, That is so cool. That is so amazing. And then I can dream about the person I'll be in the future and enjoy the dream, enjoy the anticipation of it all. So there is always a wealthier version of you. And so why not just start embracing that? Why not just start up leveling and raising your standards? Okay, so now let's talk about standards. Standards are your baseline. The financial standards you set for yourself dictate how you behave with money, how you save, how you spend, how you invest, how you earn, and how you handle debt. So according to Dr. Benjamin Hardy in his book, 10X is easier than 2X, a standard is a level of quality and norm you set for yourself. When something is truly a standard, it's a commitment. You rarely, if ever, go outside or below your floor or minimum standard. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a standard. We are all committed to standards that we've set for ourselves, even if we don't realize it. So wherever you are right now, you have some standards. You have some financial standards for yourself. It could be simply like I pay my bills on time. It could be that I make a certain amount of money. It could be that I won't let myself go below this amount of money in the bank. It could be that, yeah, I'm in debt, but I won't go that far in debt. You have some sort of standards for yourself, even if you don't realize it right now. So here's an example. Someone with a standard of just making ends meet financially will think about and approach money much differently than someone with a standard of always saving and investing a portion of their income, right? So you can see the difference. One has a standard of, I just want to make ends meet, right? I just want to pay my bills. I just want to make sure my credit cards are paid on time. I just want to be able to go on a vacation sometimes, right? That's just kind of making ends meet. The way you're going to approach your money is going to be so much different than a person who's like, no, I always save and invest a portion of my income and I enjoy life. I go on multiple vacations a year. Like the standard is just different and the approach is just different and the creativity and how you behave is different. And so if you want a different life, you got to set some different standards. And the first step to that is just realizing that you have standards and reflect on it. Like, okay, what are my minimum standards right now? We all have a baseline that we will not let ourselves dip beneath. And this is very similar to a concept that I teach in my training, How to Build Wealth Without Going on a Strict Budget. And by the way, I recently updated that training. There were 3 essentials that I walked you through. Now there are 4. So if you've signed up for this training in the past, I highly encourage you to go through it again so that you can get my updated take on it. Because as I grow and learn and become a better teacher and a better coach, I want to share it all with you. And if you have not taken the training yet, you should definitely sign up. All you have to do is go to jermainefoley.com/wealthclass. This is an on-demand training. So as soon as you sign up, you'll get the training right on your screen. So again, go to Jermaine Foley, that's Jermaine with the G, .com/wealthclass to sign up for the training that was recently updated here in 2025. Now, so one of the concepts that I talk about in the class is expanding your financial comfort zone. And this is very similar to up-leveling your standards for raising the financial standards that you have for yourself. So go ahead and sign up for the class so that you can hear me talk about it even more in depth. So I want you to know this. I am so excited for this name change, and I hope you are too. Not only am I excited about the name change, but I'm excited about all of the ways the podcast will help you and reach more people and help you all become the wealthy you. I will see you next week. Bye-bye. Wait, before you go, have you checked out my free class? It's all about the steps you need to take if you want to build wealth without going on a strict budget. To sign up, simply go to jermainefoley.com/wealthclass. That's Jermaine with a G, Foley.com/wealthclass. /wealth class. See you in there.